Okay, welcome everyone. Hello, my name is Troy Milan, product manager here at Stoplight. For the past couple of months at least, we've been working on Workspace Teams. This was a fairly large release that changed the way you can provide bulk access for your community and to your Stoplight documentation and design tools. So today we're going to talk a little bit about what Teams is generally. You can see I'm in a workspace here, so we're going to do a demo of basically how to navigate Teams, how to assign them, how to add people to them, what they're for, so on and so forth. We're going to have a little bit of a FAQ section here as well, and then I'll give you some resources to leave additional feedback. Of course, you can always leave questions in Zoom. We have a little Q&A tool, and I have some co-workers here to help me field some of those questions. And then, of course, if there are any that can't get answered in chat, I'll go ahead and take them up towards the end as well. Awesome. So essentially, what are Teams? Teams is a way to bulk manage access for your workspace members. Anyone can be on a team, guests, makers, viewers. You can have them all in one team. You can have them in separate teams. And the idea is that you assign a group of people to a team, and then you assign that team to multiple projects, right? And these projects can be anywhere in the workspace. They can be grouped or ungrouped. And while we're talking about that, groups changed a little bit with this as well. Groups used to have some of this functionality. Now, member access is fully controlled through Teams, and groups are really just folders for your projects. Let's see how that looks. So when you're at the workspace, we added, next to projects, we added this new Teams tab. Okay, over here to the Teams tab, you can see a list of all of your teams. Similar to the projects tab, when you click on a team, you can get additional information here on the right-hand side. This will show you the description of the team. If you're in the team, the opportunity to leave it, a list of who the team admins are, and the projects that are associated with that team, as well as the role that the team has on that project. So this can be a really helpful at-a-glance look to see who has access to what projects, assuming that you're using Teams to provide that access. You'll note that these team admins are available here as well, right here on the list, as well as the raw number of projects and the total number of members, as well as when the team was last edited. You can see a breakdown of the members list here. You'll notice that teams only have two kinds of members, essentially, an administrator, one or more administrators, and the members of that team. The administrators are basically responsible for adding new team members to that team and modifying the settings of that team, changing the team avatar, description, or team name. You can invite anyone to a team. When you click on this list, you'll get a list of all the team members that aren't currently in the team, all the workspace members that aren't currently in the team. That includes invited workspace members, so folks who haven't yet joined the workspace but have already been invited. And then you can go ahead and invite new people here as well. When you invite someone new to the workspace, they'll get an invitation to the workspace, and then when they accept that invitation, they'll automatically join this team as well. And if this team is assigned to any projects, then they'll automatically get access to those projects also. You can invite multiple people at the same time. Similar to the direct share dialog and the way you give project member access, workspace guests and workspace viewers will oftentimes have this little call out indicating that they are restricted in some way, that they are essentially read-only members. So you can go ahead and assign them here, but when they get added, you'll notice that there's a little call out indicating that there are some read-only members on this team. And then when there are pills here, they give you a little bit more information about what that means. Essentially here, it means that this guest is a read-only member. So they may be a member and this team may be assigned as an admin on some of these projects, but that guest would, rest assured that guest will never be an admin. That guest will still only have guest access. All right, what does this look like from the project side? Well, if you go to the projects list here you can see all of the projects and the groups, which are essentially folders now. Opening up one of these projects and then going to the members tab, you can see the teams list and the members list here. Here you can see that you can assign a team, any role other than owner, to a project. So they can be an admin, an editor, a viewer on that project. If there is a team that has a mix of roles, as in it has a viewer or it has a guest on that team, then that team essentially has some mixed roles. And we give a little call out here, similar to the other one, indicating that there are one or more read-only members here. Despite that this team Cheetah is an admin, those individuals on that team will not have admin access. They'll continue to be restricted. It's a convenient way to just bucket a bunch of people into a team and have confidence that you're not going to kind of overprescribe permissions that aren't really befitting of that person, but you don't have to, go out of your way to spin up a guest team or a viewer team if you don't want to. In some cases, that can be a convenient way to organize your project, but it's not necessary. There are team limits. So if you go to a team, the Teams tab, and you go to create a new team, we'll actually surface that limit here. This is indicating that I'm on a professional plan and I have a maximum of 20 teams. Enterprise has unlimited teams. Free and starter projects or workspaces do not have access to teams at this time. So you'll need to upgrade to professional in order to get teams access. I showed you a second ago how you can access the members tab for a project and assign a team here. I want to call out that this is not the only place to do that. If you go into a project specifically and then access the share dialog here, this has exactly the same information. So from here, I can go to the autocomplete, see a list of teams that aren't currently on this project or individual members, and then go ahead and add them. I can pick the role just like I would an individual person, and then invite them. Member successfully added, indicating that the team, if I open this back up, you can see that the team is now here. Everyone who is on that team now at least has viewer access to the project. It's important to note this doesn't impact what these people will see on their sidebar. Unless you're a guest will only have on their sidebar those projects they have access to. But if you're an internal member, then you have the ability to customize what you see on this workspace sidebar by pinning these projects here. So for example, I just pinned the Acme Style Guide. That's why this shows up. This has nothing to do with whether I'm on a team that has access to this project or not. If you're a workspace owner, you have some bulk actions available to you. So if you select these checkboxes or even select all, you'll notice that you have you're able to bulk delete teams as you see fit. Now that's actually kind of helpful because when we first launched Teams, we wanted to preserve access for everyone, meaning that if you had previously been given access to projects using a group, and essentially if you were in a group and that group had 10 projects in it, that meant that you had some level of access to all of those projects, depending on if the group was set to inherit or as an editor or as a viewer. But since we took that functionality away from groups so that we could simplify groups to being just folders, and we moved that functionality to Teams, which at the end of the day is a little bit more flexible because it allows you to give access to things outside of groups as well. We wanted to make sure that people had the same level of access that they had before. So for those workspaces, we auto-generated teams. Now, in some cases, we auto-generated quite a few teams. It may be helpful to kind of take a look at your Teams tab to see what teams we may have auto-generated for you. I have an example workspace here that shows what you may be looking at. So when we auto-generated teams, what we did is we took your group name and we created 2 teams from it. And essentially, team 1 was a team of editors. These were folks that were workspace editors or people that had edit access to projects within that group. And then we created team 2 for viewers. Now, we didn't name them team editor and team viewer because it's possible that you could go ahead and change those, what access that team has, and then that name quickly becomes, out of date. So we thought it's safer just to kind of by convention use team 1 for editors, team 2 for viewers. And so, for example, you can see here, if you have a long list of teams, you can pretty quickly go through them, double check that, okay, here I'm on a team 1. It has editor access to these projects. I'm good with that. Check the members. Yep, these are right. Go to team 2. Yep, there are viewer on these projects. Check the members. Okay, this makes sense also, and so on and so forth. Now, like I said, we distinguished, during the migration here, we made 2 teams for viewers and editors. But as I showed before, you can go ahead and add viewers and guests and makers and workspace admins all to the same team without giving edit access to your guests, for example. We separated into 2 teams here for convenience, and so that you can go through and make changes quickly. If you want to, very quickly delete essentially all of team 2's because you don't really have anyone that has viewer access, you can do that here. You can kind of scan to see if there are any projects or more than one member in any of these teams to help you make some of those decisions as well. Okay. Last thing I want to call out here is that we did add some convenient iconography to the teams list. You'll notice that if you are a team member on a team, you'll see this little icon. Whereas if you're a team administrator, you'll have that same icon with a little gear symbol next to it as well, indicating that these are the teams that you are an admin of. This can be helpful for very quickly, kind of at a glance, finding the teams that you're interested in. If you know that you're onboarding a new person, then you can go ahead and find the team that you're on, and then go ahead and go over to the members tab and add them from the list here. Now, what are the various ways, now that we have teams and we have groups and we have these kind of use them? Well, we wrote a little bit of, I wrote a little blog post about this that you can find on blog.stoplight.io. It's one of the more recent ones. And I took a stab at some examples of how you might want to organize your Stoplight workspace. For teams, it can be helpful to oftentimes create teams that are relevant to your department. So if you have a relatively small organization, you probably just have an engineering department, a sales department, a support department, a product department, etc. And by and large, all of the engineers need edit access to all of the projects. All of the sales folks need viewer access. Marketing folks need view access. Product managers may need edit access to particular projects, depending on the person or the project. So that's one way you can go about doing it. And that could be completely distinct from how you're organizing the projects or the groups in your workspace. Likewise, you can create product development teams. At Stoplight, we use some cheeky team names. You guys may also, so if you have Team Cheetah or Team Dolphin, it makes sense to reflect those things in Stoplight so that your actual work organization hierarchy can be represented in Stoplight, so you can more easily navigate and see who you're giving access to. And then, of course, when you want to onboard someone, you can onboard them to the actual team name that they're actually on. And then you can even do this for partnerships as well, right? So at the end of the day, the Stoplight design tool helps you make really strong open API specifications and great resource materials. And then you want to host that material and share it with the world, right? So we have a way for you to host docs and share those docs, and Teams gives you a really easy way to give access to some of your internal, perhaps non-public projects, right? So if you have an interesting partnership with Microsoft or Dell or whomever, then you can create a team. You can create a team just called partnerships, or you can create a team specifically for that partnership. So like Dell guests or Microsoft guests and so on and so forth. That way, if one of these partnerships has access to a beta API or something work in progress, or perhaps a deprecated legacy API that, you just haven't been able to get them off, but you still want to give them the docs. Giving them access to a team that has access to those specific projects can be helpful. You could even name it something like deprecated projects, and any person who needs access to that gets added to the deprecated projects team. Now, sometimes there's going to be overlap with groups. For the most part, I suggest organizing your groups by, what you want visible to the public, right? So if there are public-facing documentation and essentially groups kind of give you a little bit of control over your workspace sidebar and the content that they see there, then add those groups so that your public-facing customers can more easily navigate your workspace and find the documentation that is most helpful and useful to you. That being said, you could also do it by ownership, right? So if you have a team, and it makes sense to kind of essentially call that group name the same thing as the team name, so be it. That kind of makes sense. You can organize all of the projects under that team right there. I think, my preferred approach is probably, using architecture. So if you have the front end facing APIs or your mobile APIs, creating groups relevant to those things probably makes the most sense. Likewise for your payments microservice and things like that. And in case you missed it, the blog here also makes mention of the fact that we go out of our way to make sure that you're well aware when a team has a mixed role, meaning it has both viewers, guests, and or makers, workspace makers on the same team. If that's the case, then giving that team edit access gives it to the makers, but doesn't give it to the guests, as you would expect. Okay. Well, I think we covered everything here. We talked a little bit about the team limits, mixing roles, adding team members, assigning teams to projects, creating teams. We talked about the groups to teams migration and how that kind of affected access control, which is hopefully not too much fundamentally, but probably change how you want to organize your people moving forward. And probably makes sense to do a quick review of the teams that we may have auto-created for you. Of course, if you have any questions about the teams we auto-generated for you, reach out to us. We're happy to clarify or help you make short work of getting organized once again. And then finally, we talked a little bit about how to use Teams, how to organize your workspace members to either reflect your organizational hierarchy or to reflect general roles and responsibilities for your workspace members.
And then, Troy, we do have one question. For organizations that use a centralized user system, what sort of integrations can we have here?
Well, that's a great question, right? So for many folks, especially at larger enterprises, you have a representation of your organization somewhere else, in 365 or some kind of other kind of user management system. At this time, Stoplight does not have an integration with those user management systems. We don't yet have SCIM support, so you won't be able to essentially assign a role in that system to correspondingly give them a role in Stoplight. That's one of the things that we'd like to see in the future, especially for our enterprise use case. We understand that member management can be pretty annoying and time sensitive and soak up a lot of time, but that's not something that we've been able to prioritize just yet. So in the future, we may also have a user management API. So short of a direct skim integration. There may still be, we may still offer the ability to do some scripting around adding and removing users. As a sneak peek, we are working on a Stoplight facing API, but out of the gate, we're working on something called a catalog API that gives you access to your bundled references, your bundled API specifications. So you can export them programmatically. That'll be our first public facing API. I don't think we'll have a user management API for a little while, right? So it's something on our minds, but it's not something we've been able to prioritize just yet. So we'll get this first API out the door, then see where we go from there. Okay, I'll go through these FAQs. Feel free to ask some more questions in the webinar chat as well. We can circle back around to those once we cover some of these easy questions. A lot of these will be redundant, so bear with me. Can anyone be on a team? Yes. Anyone in the workspace can be on a team. You can invite someone who's already in the workspace, or you can invite them directly to the workspace by inviting them to the team. Note that when you invite someone directly to a team, you don't have an opportunity to pick their workspace role. They'll automatically be assigned the workspace maker role when you invite them to the workspace by inviting them to a team. If they need to be a workspace viewer or a workspace guest, I suggest you invite them via the members tab first. That gives you this selector right here. Then once they're invited, you don't have to wait for them to accept. You can go ahead and invite that invited person to a team. What if a team has a mix of guest viewers and makers? Well, guest viewers will always be read-only, regardless of what role the team might have on any of the projects. Makers will have whatever role the team is assigned. How will I know if not everyone on the team can be an editor? As I mentioned before, there are helpful callouts and badges anywhere this information might be helpful. Can teams be project admins? Yes, they can. Can teams be project owners? No, not at this time. Right now, a project owner can only be one single person. By default, that's the person who created the project, but that can be handed off. How many teams can I have in the workspace? We offer a very generous, I think, 20 teams for the professional plans. Hopefully that should be enough for most professional organizations to organize your workspace. For enterprise, the sky's the limit. So we have unlimited number of teams at the enterprise level. Can you have nested teams, or for that matter, nested groups? No, not at this time. We understand there might be a need for that. We understand, I've seen that this comes up sometimes with GitLab, for example. GitLab has this notion of groups where it's either a group of people or a group of projects, so to speak, and you can have any number of nested layers to that. We haven't quite gotten that far. I do expect at some point to perhaps offer nested groups. I'm not sure about nested teams, but if that's something that's important to you, let us know. Can you have private teams? No, not at this time. Right now, if you create a team, it has no quote unquote visibility. It'll essentially be, it can be seen in the teams list by anyone with internal access, meaning any non-guests will be able to see any of the teams that have been created and any of the members. Well, in order to see the members on that team, I believe you have to be actually a member of that team. Can I request to join a team? No, not at this time. That would be helpful, I think. So we'll probably get to it at some point. But right now, you have to actually be invited to join a team. So feel free to, we've listed those team admins on the main list, so you should be able to quickly identify who's the team admin and get an invitation sent that way. Can I automatically invite new members to a team? So either this would be a skim integration or some other integration with your member management system, or perhaps some deep coupling with the allowed domains feature on Stoplight, or something involving groups. At this point, no to all of those things. We want to continue to improve this and make member management more convenient and easier and predictable. So let us know if you have ideas for which way we should go first, and what's most important to you. Did anyone's access change when Stoplight switched from group access controls to team access controls? No. No, we did a lot of testing to make sure that no one's role or level of access on any particular project changed when we changed from group member access to teams member access. If you feel we may have made a mistake, definitely reach out to us. We're happy to kind of guide you through the logic that we have used, or discuss more in depth how you might want to organize your teams. And of course, if you have a suggestion, a complaint, a kudos, or a request, you can tell us. We take all manner of feedback, good and bad. And that brings us to this last tab here. We collect feedback in a couple of different ways. You can go directly to community.stoplight.io. That essentially refers you directly to our Discord. It'll send you an invite to our Discord. Anyone and all are welcome in that Discord to ask the community for help. I'm oftentimes in that Discord answering questions that come up. But we have a flurry of customer support folks and success managers that try to keep tabs on the chatter there. Of course, if you want to reach directly to the product department, the best way to do that is to go to roadmap.stoplight.io and submit an idea. So you'll notice when you go here, you'll see ideas that are under consideration or planned or launched. If there's something here that you found that you really like, you can go ahead and mark it as important or critical. Tell us how important it is to you. Why? Give us some detail. That's super helpful. And then leave your email address so that if we have follow-up questions, we can reach out. Or if you just want to be notified when this thing hopefully makes it to fruition, we can use that email address as well. But if you have something, an idea on your mind that is not represented here, feel free to submit a new idea and we'll take a look at it.
And then we do have 2 questions in the chat as well.
Okay. Yeah, I see one from David here. He says something that he'd like to simplify our team structure to something like internal editors, internal viewers, partner A, partner B. In the end, I need to assert that all the 120 members are assigned to a team. Can I confirm this through the user interface? That's a really good question, right? So if you want to exclusively use Teams to manage access, which I think is probably a good idea because that'll be the most flexible way of providing access. There's not a super strong way to be 100% sure that every member is on a team. And we've thought a little bit about that. I think after we did some of the Teams changes, we took a look at the members list here and we saw that there's probably some room for improvement here. For example, you can't click on any of these rows to get a sidebar with additional information on the members. One thing we could do here, now that you mention it, is like a Teams count column. And if we had that you could essentially sort on Teams count to see how many teams any individual is on. And if anyone's on 0 teams, then those would either bubble up to the top or the bottom, and you can go ahead and address those from here. I think ideally the workflow would be you see them, they have 0 teams, you click on them, you have some kind of access to a project picker or Teams picker so that you can choose what teams or projects they belong to. So I think that's a great suggestion. Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. You've inspired me.
And then we have one other question. Can we still have members as project editors, but not in a team? It seems that's the case for my workspace.
Oh, yeah, great question. Alex, yes, you absolutely can. So when you look at a project, you look at the members list, or essentially the share dialog. And remember this, when you're on a project list and you click a project and go to members tab and you're looking at this right here, you're looking at the same thing that is in the share dialog from the project specifically. So wherever you're at, you should be able to access this kind of access list. And from here, you can see that you can give teams access or you can give individual members access, right? So if I want to go ahead and give Chelsea and Daniel edit access, I can do that here. And here they have edit access. So fun fact, right? Didn't mention this, but if these 2 folks, Chelsea and Daniel, are also on like marketing and sales, they'll have viewer access based on the team, but they'll have elevated access because they've been direct assigned here as an editor. The role that you direct assign someone to will always essentially override the access that they had via any other mechanism. So that also works for downgrading as well, right? So if you have a team of editors like engineers that you go ahead and assign edit access to all of your projects, but for whatever reason, some of these projects you want to preserve and you want to control access a little bit more, you can go ahead and very explicitly say, no, this person's a viewer. No, this person's a viewer.
And then we also have a question in the Q&A. Is there a way to have approvals of an API design, maybe using a team with approvers?
Oh, that's a great question. Approvals has been something on our mind for a little while now, and we would love to do something like that. Right now, we don't have that feature, so there's no way to get an approval in Stoplight, either from a direct person, from an individual, or from a team. But I do love like where you're going, and I think we're on the same boat there. This is kind of like the GitHub model where you can go ahead and make a team kind of the reviewers or the approvers of a particular repository. So that's something we want to do at some point in Stoplight as well. When you're reviewing your proposals, it would be great if a team had access to those proposals and could go ahead and approve them or send them back for additional work, so on and so forth. Over time, I think we'll have more and more of those kind of workflow capabilities here in Stoplight, and teams will be a big part of that. Absolutely.
All right, any other questions?
I believe there's one more.
Oh, yes, right.
At the bottom. Troy, is there a way or plan to tie the team roles to branching, merging, pull request privileges in Git or Stoplight version controls?
That's a good question, right? So at the end of the day, if your repository is in Git, and essentially it's a Git-based Stoplight project, that means that we rely on Git for essentially access control and essentially the source of truth for who can read and write to that repository. So Stoplight doesn't override that in any way, and there's not a deep integration where changing who has access in Stoplight will change that access in Git or GitHub, and vice versa. So for Git-based projects, the answer is, your Git system will always be the source of truth for who can push and pull to that repository. That being said, if it's a web-based project in Stoplight, then Stoplight is the source of truth for that. And in that way, yes, essentially you manage who has view and who has edit access. Now, that being said, we don't have granular control for editors. So if I'm looking at one of these projects and let's say, Chelsea here is an editor and Chelsea goes into edit. Obviously I'm not Chelsea right now, but if I were, I go in here to edit, I can do all the things that you're asking, right? I can create a new version. I can make changes. I can publish. I can do all these things simply as an editor on the project. Over time, if more granular roles are important to you, I think you should let us know. Submit that idea via the roadmap, start a conversation in Discord, and we'd love to kind of hear your thoughts about a little bit more about why that level of granular control is important to you, what you plan to use it for. Just some use cases I think would be super helpful. I think intuitively it makes sense. It's just a matter of prioritization at this point. So thank you.